All right, so I wanted to introduce Hannah Casey. I met at the Squad Up Summit in what was that, 2 months ago? And you know what I really love about you, Hannah, is that when we got there and I was like, we were just chatting about some stuff, and you had a strategy about approaching people and finding people that you wanted to talk to throughout the whole conference. And I just loved like how um how specific you were and how you were very intentional about why you were there and who you wanted to meet. And I feel like that was very unique compared to a lot of other people that I met at Squad Up, because it's kind of like everybody, there's so many people, you're just kind of wandering around and you're like, whoever I meet, and you kind of go through life that weekend, just kind of doing it that way. But when we were talking, she was telling me, well, I'm looking for a specific banner on everybody's name tag to connect with, because I know that they're going to lead me to my next adventure. And so I just really love that you were very focused, and that's what made you stand out so much more than anybody else that I met there. In addition to just like your huge heart and what you do for your community, I just, wanted to learn more and talk to you more about what you do. And I know that you have one sober living home and you're kind of off to, other adventures as well. But, I'm excited to hear more about what you've learned and how we can, just continue to network and work together. So thanks for speaking on the call today.
Thank you so much, Renee. You're gonna make me cry over here. That was such a sweet introduction, and excuse me, I really appreciate your heart as well. I mean, it's very obvious talking to you that you have a heart for service, and we're all in real estate here, but I mean, real estate is cool, real estate is great, but we can use it to do more things and help people. So just really appreciate your heart and appreciate you putting this group together, because it's great for us to be able to network and share ideas and learn more, because let's face it, like, no individual one of us knows everything, right?
Mm-mm.
Not at all.
For
So all
sure.
right, let's see if I can kick this baby off. So unlicensed group homes, how to save the world and make money doing it. And I really so yes, I do sober living, but I didn't want to make this presentation too narrow, because the truth is that's not the population for everybody. And there's so many different groups of people that can benefit from this type of housing. So I just wanted to present all of them. And then I think toward the end, if people are specifically interested in sober living, I'm happy to answer questions, like tell some fun stories, however we want to do it. I'd love for it to be interactive. If anybody has a question, I don't have to be talking to myself the whole time, so feel free to jump in. So, okay, I think everybody here kind of knows who I am, but we'll run through it real quick. How do I get rid of this annoying? Here we go. Okay, so my name is Hannah Casey. As you guys know, I'm a native Texan on a Louisiana adventure. I've been down in South Louisiana for about 2 years now and loving it, loving the music and the culture and the people. Great people like Brad here. And
Mhm.
I'm also um, a recovering CPA, I call it, but that's my professional background. So I spent 2 years in audit and 8 years in private equity firms doing commercial real estate and fund accounting. I have since transitioned to become a full-time real estate investor, which is full of adventures, as everybody here knows, for themselves. And continuous learner and networker. I love connecting with people. I love kind of figuring out what makes people tick, what they're passionate about, and what their gifts are, because we all have different ones, which makes it um, very non-boring and exciting. And then for fun, I love stand-up comedy, music, dancing. I just signed up for Cajun dancing, so that will be really interesting. It's very niche for the people not in Louisiana. and embarrassing my nieces because they are not.
You'll have to take a video of that, Hannah, of the dance class.
Let me get a little better.
Okay.
And then embarrassing my nieces who are teenagers. So, okay, just to take a step back in terms of group homes. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this, and certain strategies are going to be better for some people, and other strategies will be better for others. So, just high level, you're going to have a licensed group home, you're going to have an unlicensed group home. Okay, the licensed group home, it's going to be more expensive to get into. You're going to be providing services. You can charge more for those services, but you're going to need more capital up front to get it rocking and rolling. On the unlicensed side, pretty much anybody can do that to start with, and that's what I focus on, are unlicensed group homes, because I wanted less red tape. So you do not need a license or any type of certificate to operate an unlicensed group home. And this is a nationwide thing. And the reason this is because you are essentially a landlord, a specialized landlord, but a landlord nonetheless. So you are only providing housing on a rent by the room basis or a per bed basis, however you want to run your home. So something that would require licensing or certification is going to be, or I'm sorry, if you have people in your house that require some extra care through home health or behavioral health, case managers, social workers, you are simply going to outsource that. And you really need to make it clear that I am only providing housing here. And the way you can kind of think about it is with, like with student housing, like I'm sure, back in college, you had roommates, right? Like you might have stayed in a big house and everybody just like rented one room and then split the rent up, right? So those are unrelated people. This is the exact same concept, except we're going to use it to target specific groups of people. So the why. Well, the why is different for everybody. So, be authentic to yourself and be true to yourself. But for me, it was to help vulnerable people who, are on the verge of falling through the cracks in society, were no one to step in, be it that they don't have a good family support system, they've made some tough choices in life, whatever the case is, really doesn't matter. There's an overwhelming demand for this type of housing. And you can 10x your cash flow if you do it right. And if you are providing services to people who need your services and you are doing right by them and providing them a safe place to live, then it's okay for you to make money also. That isn't wrong. So this is also a business model. So for the requirements here, what you need to do is essentially follow the same rules and regulations that any other type of a landlord would have to provide in your area. If you are operating a sober home, we're going to get into the legal aspects of it in a minute, but if you're operating a sober home and somebody tries to tell you, oh, like you can't do this in this neighborhood because these people are unrelated, the federal government would call that discrimination. So you have recourse. Let's continue. All right. So the populations that the typical, well, there is no typical group home. It can be whatever you want it to be. It could be something as simple as low income housing. So like a pad split situation. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that model. Could be college students, the homeless, parolees, reentry. I've had a lot of guys like this come through my house. Victims of domestic violence, who are fleeing their abuser. They often need transitional housing just to figure out how to get their financial situation okay and back on their own. And then people in the LGBT community who, maybe they've come out and their family no longer accepts them. They are at bigger risk of homelessness, recovering alcoholics and drug addicts. That's kind of like my lane, and that one was personal to me because that is, in my family. And so I think with any of these, the one thing I would say, if you're looking to get into it, make sure it is you're choosing a population that resonates with you, because if not, it's not going to go well. Like, do not just get into it because you're like, oh, cool, I can make more cash flow. If you want to do that, like, do pad split. But I will say some of these populations, they require extra attention. And you just want to make sure that it's something you care about and you're not going to burn out doing it. And you're able to um, give them a good environment, essentially. So the mentally ill, that's a huge one, where they have a severe lack of housing. People that are physically disabled, developmentally disabled, veterans, and seniors. So we call that the Golden Girls model, which I really like. I feel like the Golden Girl is my spirit animal. So that's essentially just a scaled down assisted living. So it's not really an assisted living, because with that, you would need to have licenses and provide services. For this, it's essentially just, 5, 6 elderly people who maybe they're low income, they're on Social Security, they're on a budget, and they can't afford to go into a fancy assisted living, right? And maybe they don't want to be in an environment that feels very institutional. Maybe they'd rather just be like in a house with their friends. So that's I think that's a cool one too. I mean, they're all good. It's just what speaks to you. So let's run through kind
Hannah,
of
real quick,
uh-huh.
wasn't another thing that you mentioned was kids that are aging out of the foster system?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you for
that's a
bringing
good
that
one
up.
to
I can't
add.
believe I forgot them.
I can't believe you did either, but I know that you're revamping a little bit on this presentation, so I wanted to add
Yes.
it.
Yes. So that's a very good point. So in general, young adults, so people that are, let's say, anywhere from 18 to 25, they have a really difficult time renting because think about it, they don't have a credit history, they don't have a rental history sometimes. And so people don't want to rent to them because they think they're going to get in there and party and tear everything up. So that's a good group to focus on. They often have, kind of your more entry level or minimum wage jobs and maybe can't afford an apartment on their own. So you can rent to young people. You can also rent to young people who have aged out of the foster care system, because what happens a lot of times is that, unfortunately, the system is very imperfect, and some foster parents don't have the best intentions. Some of them are in it just for the money and to collect the check. And then when these kids turn 18, they just kick them out into the street. And they're not really ready for adult life yet. And they don't have the resources. So they're another great group. And there's a lot of support agencies out there who can help. And we're going to get into that later as well in terms of how to get paid. But just to kind of run through a high level example from a business perspective, this is what I really, really like about the group home model is you can really, really increase your cash flow for the same building, right? So you don't have to go out and buy 10 doors necessarily. You can use one door and generate the income for 10 doors. So in this example, I'm kind of looking at a 4-bed, 2-bathroom house locally is kind of my assumption. So for a single family home, you might be able, oh no. How do I go back? Okay, we can do this. I got excited and I clicked. So for a single family home, let's say you're bringing in $2,000 in revenue, you're passing on all the utilities to the tenant, and then your PITI is going to be about 2,400, especially at today's interest rates, because let's face it, they're crazy and they're probably not going to drop anytime soon. It's very difficult to cash flow, and I'm sure everybody here that is looking at real estate deals feels that it's harder than it once was, also due to just the price overall. Um, However, with a group home, now this is assuming 10 people, this is assuming full vacancy. So don't think like this is my guaranteed number, this 3,000. This is probably a best case scenario. However, I just kind of wanted to show you the difference in what's possible, and then you can kind of make your mind up from there. So here I'm assuming I went off of kind of like Louisiana rent, so what I charge for my sober living. So I think it is like 615 a month for 10 people. Here's your revenue. With shared housing, you're going to go ahead and take care of the utilities because you don't want extra conflict. You don't want, 10 people fighting over like who's going to take care of that. You just want it taken care of and systematized and automatically done, and keep your life peaceful and easy. So and then you pull out the mortgage if you own the property. You can also pull out the rent if you rent the property. So that's another strategy. You can do this two ways. You can own the real estate and operate these types of group homes out of the real estate, or you can rent a property. Maybe this is actually what I did because I just wanted to try it out first and make sure it was right for me. You can rent a property from a landlord. They're going to rent the property to your LLC, and then you're going to operate the business. You're going to be making more than what you're paying in rent, and then you're going to keep the spread. So you can do this either way. If you're someone who has a lot of properties and you don't necessarily want to be an operator, but you really like helping people and you'd like to be a part of this, then you can just find an operator and lease the property to them, and they can kind of do their thing. So there's a lot of ways to go about this, depending on what your kind of investing in personal avatar is. So I think people get really tripped up around the legality of this because different places will have different local laws in force, right? And different codes and laws. However, you're really protected under the federal umbrella to do this type of housing, and we're going to kind of walk through some of the laws. I just want to say right now, I'm not a lawyer, this is not legal advice. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. However, I'm in a network of about, a couple hundred group home operators, and no one has ever had their group home taken away from them from a local municipality. These are people nationwide who are doing this exact same thing. So the reason for this is due to federal fair housing law. So federal law will always trump local law. Municipalities will admit they have laws on the books that are federally illegal, and they are just trying to see what they can get away with. But, we know our rights and we know what to do when we get, a Karen going rogue on us. So there are several laws in place that are, kind of written specifically for this, and I've got them listed out below. You can, feel free to take a screenshot, kind of research these on your own. I know I'm one who kind of likes to research and dive in and understand it myself, but just kind of going through. This is one scenario. Not always does Uncle Sam have your back, but in this scenario, he does. So the like that. The Department of Justice and HUD actually issued a joint statement, and the reason they issued this statement was because some of the local law enforcements were telling people, "Oh, you can't do this type of housing because the people are unrelated." Right? Now, if you have a law locally that says, "Okay, you can't have more than, I don't know, 10 people in a house and it's for a family," then okay, they have a case there. But if they're just saying you can't have more than this people because they're unrelated, that's discrimination. You can sue the city. Okay. And these are some of the consequences that are going to happen once you sue the city. You can get actual damages, civil penalties, attorney's fees, punitive damages. What I would do first is go to the newspaper and just mess up their PR. You might not even have to go into a lawsuit, but there's a very robust uh, case history for these types of cases, and most of them come from Oxford housing. If you guys are familiar with Oxford housing, that's kind of the original sober living house. They've been around since the 50s. They've been sued dozens of times. They've won every time. They don't have a license. And they are just a place for people that want to remain sober, to live amongst like-minded people after they come out of rehab, and attend meetings and be actively involved in their 12-step recovery. So here, I hate reading off the screen, but their statement is basically saying that the regulation and licensing requirements are themselves subject to scrutiny under the Fair Housing Act. The requirements based on health and safety concerns can be discriminatory themselves or may be cited sometimes to disguise discriminatory motives behind attempts to exclude group homes from a community. And so that's kind of what I was talking about when I mentioned sometimes the cities and the local municipalities will try to get away with stuff that's actually illegal. Here we go. We've got some more kind of laws and cases to emphasize this point. Here in the FHAA, they have land use laws, and it says that congregate living, group housing arrangements among non-related persons with disabilities. Sober living is considered a disability under this statute. And since these requirements are not imposed on families and groups of a similar size of other unrelated people, then they have the effect of discriminating against people with disabilities. Kind of to my earlier point there. Am I talking too fast? Let me stop for a moment. Can
You're
you
good.
understand? Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is great because these are questions that people have all the time for sure. And there's actually a lawsuit well, not, I don't know if it's going to happen in a lawsuit, but there's like a city here in Colorado who's really giving one of the group home operators a run for his money about all of this. It's kind of a mess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, they may try, but they have no basis. I would suggest that he responds aggressively and confidently, and I'd be happy to talk to him about how I would approach that situation. So
Thank
just
you.
keep that in mind. Okay, so we talked about the joint memo already. Let me not repeat myself. Here's another kind of like just general guideline, because a lot of times when people ask me about this, they say like, how many beds can you do? Is there like a certain standard? And the truth is that it's going to vary locally. However, the Keating memo is a federal statute, and it essentially says that 2 adults per bedroom is going to be reasonable. Now, you're going to want to look at your city because some places will have a certain requirement of you need to have X number of square feet per bed, and then you would just have to go by that. I know some people who will like really pack the beds in to maximize their profit, and then I know people who will just rent by the room and kind of everything in between. What I will say from a management perspective is that like, I use the phrase, I love the phrase like people be peopling, for good or bad. So the more people you have in a space, just understand like the more potential conflict, interpersonal conflict you may have. So, that just depends on your risk tolerance there. It's a choose your own adventure. So, some additional laws that can help out here with any issues you encounter is the Americans with Disability Act, Section 504 of the Rehab Act that deals with the recovery community, Age Discrimination Act for the senior care, and Violence Against Women Act for those you know, getting out of bad situations. So this space is if you can get into it now, it is going to explode. And I think just anybody with kind of common sense can look around and notice, oh, we really lack affordable housing. I know here in Louisiana, in actually, I called the city of New Iberia, their waiting list for Section 8 is 2 years. So, yes, there is not a big incentive, in my opinion, right now. I mean, some investors love doing it, but there's not a huge incentive for Section 8 because you really don't, you might as well just rent a normal unit. I suppose you're getting insured by the government, but then you also have to deal with the government, which typically, business people may have somewhat of an allergy to doing that. However, this is going to be huge. So huge, in fact, that HUD, issued this statement on their voucher program. So typically vouchers have been reserved for single family apartments, right? They want to have a full apartment for one family. Well, recently, I believe this was in 2021, they've changed their tune because, let's face it, we don't have the inventory. And the amount of people who are homeless are growing every single day. And, no one, the problem is going to become insurmountable. So even the government is catching on that we need to look at alternatives here. So here they're saying shared housing is a single housing unit occupied by an assisted family and other residents. You have a common space, you have occupants of the unit, and a separate private space for each assisted family. This can even be used, I left this group out, shame on me, but for single mothers and their children, who are at risk of homelessness, you can actually give them their own room. And we have a place that does that here in Lafayette, actually. And so here they're saying that shared housing is a viable housing option for profit co-living, exactly what we're talking about. Boarding house with a single bedroom and run by a private company. So here they are saying we will issue vouchers for that, type of arrangement. All right, I'm sure you guys all want to know how do I get paid, right? And I understand because you have to pay the bills. So there's a number of different ways to do this. Option number one is going to be self-pay, which is just going to be your typical situation. Like even if you have long-term rentals where you charge rent, you get paid by the person. And I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. This is what I do, and I don't recommend it. It's not the best way to do it. For a couple of reasons, and depending on the population you work with. Obviously, from a management perspective, it's just more you have to do. I think Jackie, we've connected separately, and she's done an amazing job systematizing all this. So that's a great way to do it. I will say for sober living, it can be difficult because you're dealing with people who are in active addiction, right? I've gotten guys who are as fresh as 30 days out of recovery and they are struggling and they may not be able to manage their money properly. So I have to be on top of them. I have to charge their rent weekly so that there's no temptation to have that money burning a hole in their pocket on payday. I know when they get paid, I look at their pay stubs and I make sure that we are square. So self-pay is one way. Another way to do it is through a third party payee. So a great thing to do with this low income housing is try to find people as you're screening who are either on Social Security or disability. And you can collect the rent out of that check through a third party payee representative company. I threw a couple in here who that's all they do. They just help people manage their money. And I do this with some of my sober guys who I know are not good with money. And so these companies typically just charge like a 1 to 3% fee, similar to a credit card. And they will make sure that the money goes, straight from their Social Security or for their bank account when their check hits to your business account. So that's a really good way to manage it. And then the top tier, like the thing that we can all go for, this is going to require the most networking and the most connections, is an agency direct deposit. So essentially what you're going to do is just pick up the phone and smile and dial. So literally I started out, I went into the yellow pages, I looked up keywords like um, recovery, rehab, social workers, what else? Nonprofits, any, and you can tailor it to the demographic you want to serve. Find all those people, put them in a CRM, and just start calling them and tell them what you're doing. I would recommend, if you're wanting to operate, go get your referral list first. Go find the people before you buy the house. Because what you don't want to do is buy the house and then it's sitting there empty, right? Especially if you're serving a particular group, you want to kind of go find the people, have your waiting list. Then you can use that as leverage when you're talking to these agencies. I've personally found that the smaller nonprofit agencies are easier to work with. A lot of times they get their funding from a bigger agency, but they just have less red tape. They're just easier to deal with. So if you can go to them and say, hey, look, like, I have this many people on my waiting list. I work with other investors who do this. You can use me or any of us here that do co-living as calls your partners, use them as credibility. And I'm doing my market. This is a new company. I'm doing my market research here. And we want to expand and have a lot of houses. Is this something that your clients could use? You're going to be their favorite person. They're going to be so happy you called. And this has been my experience because there's such a shortage right now of landlords willing to work with, especially some of these demographics, that they are thrilled. People that are, I try to always, when I'm talking to people, I try to always approach things from their side and understand where they're coming from. When you're dealing with social workers and people in the non-for-profit industry, let's face it, they make very little money. They have a job that is kind of impossible to help everybody, and there's a really high rate of burnout. So if you can come in there and show them that you care and want to make their lives easier, you're going to become very popular very quickly. So marketing, ways to fill your house. Marketing is marketing. There's a million ways to do it. These are a few ideas here. Some are going to work better for certain demographics than others. Facebook is very effective. Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Roomies.com is a website. It's basically a platform just for co-living. So people go there who are looking to rent co-living rooms. You can do Google ads, SEO, do a website. I'll show you my website. It's a little bit stock. It's not that. I keep thinking about playing, like, changing it up, but just if you have a website presence, that is typically good enough for some credibility. Volunteer, go get involved in your local community. And the goal is for people to know who you are. So just go out there and make genuine relationships and tell people what you're doing. And you'd be shocked how fast things can move. Okay, here's some more ideas. You can go to city council meetings, housing coalitions, introduce yourself. You can, if you're an extrovert, you can say, hey, I want to give a presentation, really get in front of them. You can do some branding. Like the first thing I did was make my swag. I made my t-shirts and my hats and I gave them to family and friends and like forced them to wear it around. And yeah, it just
Free advertising.
free advertising, exactly. And it's repetition.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing I like to say is oh no, tell good stories. Um, I won't go back. I'm happy to share this presentation too at the end with everybody if helpful, if you missed anything. But just tell good stories. People don't relate to numbers, people relate to a personal story. So, if there's one in your house whose story touched you, or even somebody else who's doing it and they have a story, tell that story. And the biggest way that the biggest thing you can do to sell this business is really to care more than other people. I can tell you that these agencies, they do deal with landlords who do not care, who are in it for the wrong reasons. They're in it solely for the money. And they're slumlords and they run their property like that. They don't keep it up. And it's it is what it is. It's horrible. But that's an opportunity for you to stand out and for you to be the opposite of that and build that trust and build that rapport. And once you get your reputation out there, then you will no longer have to do marketing because the people will just come to you. So just kind of a quick summary, try not to go too long, of the pros of this model over a long-term rental. So obviously you have a chance to boost up your cash flow a lot more.
And
Number
real
two,
quick on that one, just a question. So when you're saying like 10 times the cash flow, I mean, it definitely makes a difference if you're leasing the property versus if you're owning the property.
it does.
And then it also makes a difference if you are running the sober home or whichever type of group home it is. If you're running the program, and you own the home, then that's the way that you can get the maximum amount of income. But if you're just, the landlord and you don't necessarily want the everyday duties of running the program, then the cash flow will certainly be more than a long-term rental, but not necessarily 10 times the amount.
Yes, and that's an important nuance that I'm glad you pointed out. You are correct. So when I say 10 times the cash flow of a long-term rental, I am referring to being an owner operator, of one that is fully occupied, and has enough beds, right? This is a approximation. Um, Everybody here knows that every deal is different and you would have to underwrite them separately. I actually have a spreadsheet I use when I look at houses for group homes. If it would be helpful to anyone, I'm happy to share that. Just kind of how I run my cash flow numbers to see if it's worth exploring further. But great point, Renee. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so this is my favorite part right here, the licensing agreement. This is my favorite part. So the idea here is that none of my guys with the sober living, they do not have leases, um, because they are struggling and they are, at risk of falling off at any time. So I'm there to help them and provide a good environment, but I cannot commit to a lease, where they're creating a problem, and I have no rights as the landlord. So what I do is I actually have a licensing agreement. It is essentially like a hotel, right? So they sign my licensing agreement. They are agreeing to lease space in the house for me. So they are leasing a bed temporarily. They are allowed to stay as long as they want, as long as they follow my house rules. I have the house rules in the agreement. In detail. I'm going to tell you they're written heavily in my favor to the point to where if somebody leaves a dish in the sink, I can technically have the cops come and get them right now. Do I do that? No. But I am protected in case somebody is causing a problem in my house. And with sober living, you may have some problems from experience. So, I have full control over the property, like from a landlord perspective. If I own the property, okay, if I have a long-term rental, right? You're not going in there and being like, "Hey, Bob, are you taking care of everything? Like, is anything broken? Is there a leak you're not telling me about?" No, you have a risk of deferred maintenance. With this house, I get to go in, from time to time, check on everything, like see that everything is in good order. They're hitting their chores list. They're keeping the place in great shape. And I actually have cameras as well in the house to kind of keep them honest. I don't have them in their personal area, but it's just in the common area and then in the front door and the back door. And that's worked very well. Additionally, there's this is kind of changing a bit, but there's less competition for investors when you're looking at larger homes. So if you're looking at like a 5, 6, 7+ bedroom home as an investor, like most investors aren't looking for that because they don't typically cash flow. It's not typically a rental property, your standard 3-bed, 2-bath. That's more attractive for an investor. So you can go after those homes that other people maybe aren't looking at. And then the mostly grateful tenants. I'll tell you guys that my recent long-term tenant has given me way more problems than like any of my sober living guys. They are grateful to have a place to be, for the most part. Now, sometimes they get into their addiction and their victim mentality type of stuff, but for the most part, they oftentimes don't have anywhere else to go. And, they're happy for a place that's nice and clean and safe, and where they can be around people who are also serious about recovery. So, that's the coolest part to me. So those are some pros. Okay, I think this is probably the last slide. So things to look at when you're looking at properties to do this in, you're going to want to look for a really high bedroom and bathroom count. And I say minimum of 4-bed, 3-bath. I personally would not put more than 3 people to 1 bathroom, just because life will be better that way. And obviously with the more bedrooms and bathrooms, you're going to reach your economies of scale. You're going to cash flow more. That's just how the numbers work out. You want this to be very near public transit because like none of my guys have a car outside of the house manager. So you want them to be able to catch the bus and get to work and do all that type of stuff. You're going to want to focus on B or C class neighborhoods. You really don't want to be in an A neighborhood, for one, because the price point is not going to make sense as an investor. For two, because I don't want to stereotype people, but A class neighborhood people are probably going to be more likely to whine about it. And even though they don't have a case and all they can do is whine, it's just like, why have problems unnecessarily? So I kind of focus on B or C class neighborhoods where it's just working class, it's safe. Doesn't have to be the Taj Mahal, but just, nice, clean, safe, comfortable, right? So I would avoid HOAs. You could technically still do this in an HOA neighborhood if the bylaws allow rentals, but I wouldn't do it just for the reason I mentioned before, because why invite people to complain about it when there's plenty of houses. So I know I mentioned that not everybody has cars, but depending on the population, the goal is for them to move out of this, right? So the goal is for them to build up stability, eventually get a vehicle and move out, right? That would be actually the actual success if they can move into their own place. So some people will have cars, so it's just good to have like a big driveway and some off-street parking, if you can. Uh, Backyard area is always nice. You don't want people smoking in your house, but people love their cigs as well, so it's good to have a little place for them to do that if they choose to. Um, Clean house. Oh, I don't even remember what point I was trying to make with that. Basically, you want the house clean, and that's something that you just have to set the culture kind of like as people are moving in and just say, hey, this is the expectations. Um, and just keep it clean because you get one dirty person and it's going to make the whole house dirty. Or in the sober community, we say a house can easily become sick. If you have one sick person in there, they can have the propensity to infect the whole house. So it's really about checking in and keeping the vibe and the environment up with everybody. Um, and then safe neighborhoods for obvious reasons. So that's kind of what you would want to look for. And cool, I get to stop rambling now. And if anybody has questions or if y'all just want to chat, um, I'm happy to do that. Thank you, Travis. Thank you for being here. No problem. It was great to see you.
I'm really glad that you said to like pick a group that you're passionate about because I think a lot of people will just like pick random groups and it really does help to like really be passionate about like helping this specific set of people who are in recovery or this specific set of like foster kids or whatever it is. So I'm really glad you said that.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen that as well.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
awesome. What's going on, Robert? I didn't see you sneak in here.
I know, I just noticed that too.
Robert's here in Lafayette, Louisiana. He runs a RIA out here. That's awesome. A lot of value for people.
I love just like the basics of what you've presented and kind of helping people understand what they're getting into. James, hopefully, since you didn't know anything before you came on here, maybe it was helpful to
It
get
was a
all of
well,
those basics.
it was a great presentation. Wealth of knowledge. Very well done. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that helped. And y'all, my friend James here has a property right now that would be really good for this in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If y'all know anybody in that area interested in running a group home,
You want to give us the details about it, James?
So are you speaking of the commercial building or the single family building or?
the school, the old school.
Oh yeah. So I purchased a repurposed school building that was partially used as a personal care home. So that side of the building was specifically built as a personal care home. So that is like 14 private and semi-private rooms. And it's about 45 minutes south of Pittsburgh, PA. What else? Is there anything else I can share with you that I might know?
You know how it's zoned? Just out of curiosity.
So I know that there is no really zoning regulations that would hold me up from pretty much doing anything I want with the building.
Perfect. That's all I needed to know.
And are you looking to sell it or do you own the property? Are you like, what's your position in it?
Yeah, so I own the property myself, free and clear. I just really don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Okay, and if you want to connect with me too, James, I mean, well, I think my number is with my Zoom account, but if you want to either put your number in the chat or whichever, I can connect with you too, and maybe we can brainstorm some ideas.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. I appreciate it.
Anna, I just want to thank you again for presenting tonight. And, I think this presentation is super helpful and certainly for people who are considering this space, and just really appreciate your time and jumping on here to present to us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to help. And thank you for putting this together. Thank you like
Yeah,
for bringing us together so we can, figure out how to help more people and do cool stuff. So appreciate you.
exactly. Yeah, no problem. All right.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, everybody have a great evening, and we'll catch you on the other side.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
y'all too. Appreciate
All
you
right.
guys.
Yeah.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
night.